Good afternoon. This is Sophie Lee from KRAFTON's IR team. I would like to start off by thanking investors and analysts from both home and abroad for joining our second quarter 2025 earnings release. Today, I have with me CGPO Jin-Ho Oh and CFO Dong-Gun Bae. For the benefit of investors from Korea and overseas, presentation will be made through simultaneous interpretation followed by consecutive translation during the Q&A. Do note that today's presentation is based on KIFRS consolidated estimates subject to change upon the independent auditor's review. With that, let me invite Jin-Ho Oh to present on KRAFTON's global publishing, securing future franchise IP. Hello, I'm Jin-Ho Oh, Chief Global Publishing Officer. Since the global success of PUBG, KRAFTON has continued to ask itself, what will be our next defining IP? Just as it's important to create a good game, it's equally critical that we ensure the game is well positioned in global markets and that it becomes a long-term beloved game. This responsibility falls squarely on our publishing organization, which has taken on the role of not merely distributing game titles, but executing the global success of KRAFTON's new IPs. As declared earlier this year, KRAFTON has set a mid to long-term goal of achieving 7 trillion won in revenue and doubling its corporate value by 2029. We believe that realizing this ambition requires both the continued expansion of the PUBG IP and the growth of new IPs. Our publishing division is leading the charge on the latter, focused on discovering new franchise IPs and translating them into meaningful market outcomes. Today, I'll be sharing the strategic perspective and direction behind how our publishing team is building these new IPs, along with some of the early results emerging from these efforts. Now, before diving into KRAFTON's global publishing strategy, I'd first like to introduce you to our upcoming pipeline from a global publishing perspective. The framework here is what we use to evaluate games and construct our portfolio. Rather than categorizing titles by genre or scale, we assess market maturity and whether ultimate game title already exists, based on which we group titles into 4 quadrants: pioneers, genre champions, challengers, and emerging. Currently, 13 titles are in our global publishing pipeline under HQ, which are evaluated using this framework. Today, I'll briefly introduce 2 flagship titles from this lineup. First, Windless is an open-world action RPG based on the Korean fantasy novel The Bird That Drinks Tears. This title is being developed with a unique universe, captivating characters, and compelling storyline as it aims to establish itself in global markets. Next is Subnautica 2, a survival adventure game set in deep sea. Building on the strong global fan base of its predecessor, the sequel seeks to meet existing fans' expectations while also expanding the reach of the Subnautica IP to new users. We're also preparing titles in the emerging and pioneer segments that can win over players through sheer gameplay quality. These are projects that aim to redefine what fun means or deliver deeply immersive experience of a certain kind, titles that could make audiences think, I didn't know KRAFTON could make a game like this. So once we're ready, we'll introduce them in the right way at the right time. To strengthen our portfolio in a sustainable and strategic manner, we are expanding our product lineup through 3 key approaches. First, we're proactively securing promising new IPs through external investment. A recent example is the acquisition of 11th Hour Games. Their flagship title, Last Epoch, has sold over 3 million copies since its official release in 2024. The game has been praised for its unique design and system depth in the ARPG genre. We are also exploring various content expansion opportunities and expect this title to become a defining franchise within the genre. The EHG case is just the beginning, and we plan to continue to actively acquire IPs across different genres and regions. Second, we're continuously investing in strengthening KRAFTON's internal development capabilities. Recently established studios such as OmniCraft Labs and Athena Department, led by industry veterans such as Changwan No and Hyungwook Bae, respectively, are both actively developing new titles. Each team is deeply focused on shaping unique gameplay experience, and we've also acquired Jovsoft to further scale our in-house development capacity. Third, we're building a more flexible and scalable publishing structure through the second-party publishing model. Our first 2PP title is Rivals Hover League, developed by EF Games, a studio backed by KRAFTON, and this title aims to offer a distinctive player experience within the vehicle-based arena battle genre. Beyond Rivals, several additional 2PP projects are under review and development. Following the introduction of KRAFTON's global publishing pipeline, I will now share the strategic direction of KRAFTON's global publishing operations. As we have seen so far, we believe KRAFTON's publishing is building a robust pipeline across a range of genres and creative directions. But to make this lineup even more stronger and more impactful, we've sought to clarify one critical question: what is our way of publishing? From that perspective, the two core keywords that will define KRAFTON publishing moving forward are global and player community. KRAFTON already operates regional organizations across the globe and conducts publishing tailored to local user culture and market characteristics. At the same time, we prioritize direct connection with player communities, fostering trust through transparent communication and player-friendly policies, growing our IPs into beloved franchises over time. So, early access of ENG, which launched this March, is actually a clear demonstration of how our global and player community strategies translate into action. In terms of sales, North America, including the US, accounted for 29%, Europe, including Germany and France, for 28%, and Asia, including Korea, China, and Japan, etc., for 25%. It was particularly striking to see strong and evenly distributed player response across all major global regions. From a community perspective, the results were even more compelling. During the early access phase, over 3,000 streamers organically joined our campaign. Of the 1,400 streamers whose regions we could identify, 23% were from North America, 52.6% from Europe, and 13.1% from Asia, demonstrating balanced viral momentum across global markets. By size, participation included 35.5% large, 37% mid-sized, and 27.5% small to mid-sized streamers. We believe this clearly illustrates the impact of our regionally optimized and community-centric publishing strategy built on a global organizational foundation. Next, I'll briefly share some of the concrete numerical achievements of ENG. ENG delivered impressive results in both pre- and post-launch. Prior to release, we executed a series of campaigns that amplified positive sentiment and drove ENG to first on Steam's wishlist. This reflected the excitement we were able to generate globally through publishing actions. Post-launch, ENG achieved over 1 million units sold, setting the record for the fastest-selling package game in Korean gaming history. The title also ranked as first in the most popular games across 27 countries spanning North America, Europe, and Asia, making a strong impression on players worldwide within a remarkably short period of time. We see inZOI as a prime example of how KRAFTON's global organization and community-first publishing approach can create real market impact. We remain committed to working closely with the development studio to ensure inZOI continues to grow into a long-lasting and globally beloved IP. So, as we've seen so far, KRAFTON Publishing is actively making meaningful moves across a wide range of areas backed by a solid and diverse pipeline. Beyond simply publishing games, we aim to walk the journey with player communities, turning titles into long-term, globally loved IPs. inZOI is the first proof point of our strategy. It captured global attention and excitement in a short time frame, validating our strategic direction in the eyes of the market. We will continue to build on this success by delivering more successes like inZOI and further enhancing KRAFTON's distinct publishing competitiveness. Thank you. Next, our CFO, Dong-Kun Bae, will present on KRAFTON's second quarter and first half 2025 business and financial results. Hello, this is Dong-Kun Bae, KRAFTON's CFO. Let me begin with the result of our efforts over the first half of the year based on the 5-year mid to long-term plan which we announced in February. KRAFTON's revenue in first half was 1,536.2 billion and operating profit 703.3 billion won, which were record high semi-annual results. First half 25 results outperformed the high base of 24 first half, reporting a 10% growth. We will carry on with the annual uptrend through quality content updates and marketing campaigns. In terms of gaining new franchise IPs, inZOI, following its early access last March, is under development for its first DLC in August and in preparation for publishing as we continue to invest and onboard developers for new projects. Based on new development leadership onboarded by the second quarter, 3 studios are currently running the prototyping phase. In line with KRAFTON's strategic direction, we will secure competitive teams of developers from across the globe. Also, with the acquisition of 11th Hour Games, we now have Last Epoch, further diversifying the IP portfolio, and we plan to expand and grow it into a franchise. Next, on financial results and updates on engine for future growth. First, revenue breakdown by platform. Q2 PC platform revenue was 219.7 billion, up 15% year-over-year, but down 32% Q-over-Q. Despite absence of large-scale collaborations, PUBG PC recorded a year-over-year growth thanks to wide-ranging in-game content, contender system, and the black market, but on a Q-over-Q basis, there was a decline due to seasonality factors. First half revenue hence posted 543.2 billion, rising 25% versus last year, and we plan to continue the growth momentum based on mainstreaming content offerings as we move into the second half. Mobile platform revenue in Q2 was 427.6 billion won, down 15% year-over-year and 20% Q-on-Q. Seasonality drove QoQ revenue trend downwards, but compared to last year, excluding PUBG IP-related incentive received from our partner in Q2 of 2024, we see a double-digit mobile revenue growth. X-Suit skin release in April was well received in the global markets, and PUBG Mobile rewriting daily revenue record, which was the driver behind the year-over-year growth. And BGMI grew both year-over-year and Q-on-Q on the back of strategic collaborations with local Indian brands and enhancements made to users' game experience. Hence, first half revenue was 960 billion won, up 6% versus first half of 24, as we expect to see both traffic and revenue growth driven by upcoming mode updates for Metro Royale and World of Wonders in the second half, and effective monetization strategies. Q2 console platform revenue was 9.8 billion won, up 12% year-on-year and down 25% Q-over-Q, while first half revenue was 22.9 billion won, rising 13% versus first half of 24. For the PUBG IP franchise, we are quite actively investing into content to deliver new forms of enjoyment to its fans, while highly anticipated content update is scheduled for the second half of the year. We plan to offer cultural experience beyond gaming based on IP collaborations, the effectiveness of which has already been proven. For instance, collaboration with aespa compared to New Jeans last year drove 70% increase in revenue after the release until most recently. And by running events in connection with PUBG Nations Cup esports events held last weekend, we saw the power of content at a franchise level. In Q3, we plan to showcase variety of premium content through more than 6 collaborations, including 2 supercar collaborations, Bugatti included, and Western IPs and artists. Supercar collaboration particularly is highly liked by the player base, so we will have one with Bugatti in Q3 and with other brands in Q4. We're also gearing up for collaborations whereby core content across PUBG IP titles will be shared, and through co-marketing, we will be strengthening synergies across the franchise. We plan to offer distinctive PUBG experience through cultural elements that can be enjoyed by Western users and younger age group as well. Also, by hosting joint esporting event for PC and mobile, which is a new attempt, we plan to solidify PUBG IP presence. And aside from titles currently serviced live, we continue to challenge ourselves for PUBG IP franchise expansion. Blind Spot, which is a top-down shooter game, will be showcased to global users during August Gamescom, and extraction shooter game Black Budget will go through closed alpha test end of the year. Following PUBG, Inzoi is KRAFTON's new original IP, gaining a solid position as global IP with a longer life cycle. We did an update in June to activate modes and have seen UGC expand even though it is at its early stage. We will release Mac OS version for the PC platform in August to broaden the user touchpoint, and it was pitched as a game using Apple's upscaling tech at the recent WWDC. In August, the first DLC, the New City Chahaya update, is upcoming. During the August Gamescom, we will host a meetup session where global users and creators can get together and be shown new contents and share thoughts, which in turn will be actively incorporated into future development and updates. Inzo's community-based publishing strategy will continue to be refined and is gearing up for grander goals in the longer run, above and beyond the single-play live simulation genre. Now, let me update you on Subnautica 2, which was originally scheduled for launch in the second half of the year. Subnautica 2 was one of KRAFTON's flagship new titles being developed based on the original Subnautica IP. 3 members of the previous leadership contended that the game be launched as is, but content was lacking, requiring additional development, unable to meet the milestones set by KRAFTON. We therefore requested the leadership to come back to finish up the development and the content work, to which they declined and declared that they will go ahead with the game release. Hence, KRAFTON decided to replace the 3 former leadership and appointed Steve Paputzis of Striking Distance Studio as the head of Unknown Worlds to support the development staff to focus on their development work. What's important is that now the entire team, with no turnover, is focused on shaping the depth of the game under the goal of early access launch in 2026. To give support and strengthen competencies of the development team, we overhauled the previous earn-out scheme and added new incentive programs. It's regrettable to say, but the 3 former leaders let down KRAFTON and fans' expectation that they will do their best to launch a fully polished game. Rather than covering up the problem and going to early access with a title that doesn't meet our internal standards, we believed the right thing to do was to replace the leadership, however inconvenient that decision may be, and to exert our efforts to more than satisfy the fans of Subnautica. This was the way for us to salvage and protect Subnautica IP and KRAFTON's corporate value. Through the legal proceedings, we believe we have an opportunity to clarify the facts and liabilities. Since the litigation is ongoing, I cannot open all of the details, but we'll do so when we can. Next, I will run through investment outcomes for securing franchise IP and development teams. As mentioned beginning of this year, to achieve 5-year mid to long-term plan, we are actively attracting production leadership and the development team and have onboarded more than 80 developers and secured 7 new projects. And now we have a flagship IP in the action RPG genre, Last Epic, following the acquisition of the US-based 11th Hour Games, as well as carrying out a total of 5 minority stake investments into domestic and global studios. Of these investments, we made a follow-on investment into Boundary after the initial one in 2023, gaining more shares, and they are now developing Project Nut, which is an Asian dark fantasy action RPG title. KRAFTON is preparing for the future of game industry powered by AI with its research in AI source technology and game service application. We continue R&D to secure AI technologies, and such efforts have been meaningful as 3 papers have been named as Spotlight Papers, which is a prestige given to top 5% research by ICLR, which is a premier gathering of AI professionals. We also unveiled 3 open-source inference-optimized language models applying KRAFTON's proprietary learning algorithm. The model showed better performance in mathematical reasoning and will be used in games requiring advanced inference and for upscaling AI tech for games. We analyzed existing model weaknesses and developed our own learning technique based on reviewing the errors to improve accuracy of reasoning and efficiency of learning both at the same time. And in June, we developed and unveiled ORAC, which is a benchmark that can measure AI's gameplay skill level. ORAC is a benchmark that quantifies and evaluates the gameplay capabilities of language models, and we developed it so that a total of 12 games to enable assessment of playing skills, data collection, and reinforced learning of language models. Using ORAC, we will be able to enhance design capabilities for LLM agent as we continue to refine AI tech that are optimized for games. In India, we're making various efforts to not only expand localized content offerings, but also fortify touchpoint with new players. BGMI is making the effort to broaden its brand across on and offline through strategic collaborations with major local brands. In Q2, we partnered with India's biggest motorcycle maker, Hero Bike, as well as Sting, India's #1 energy drink company, to make and sell hundreds of millions of bottles, thereby strengthening our branding in India. Also, through the partnership with #1 telco, Jio Telecom, we launched a special rate plan for gaming and gave out game items guided by stronger local strategy. We are also focused on developing localized in-game content and actively marketing the game to drive new user inflow in India. KRAFTON India Publishing is planning on developing and introducing content that best fit Indian players' preference in Q3 and are solidifying the BGMI branding through new marketing content that leverages different media, including music and animation. Next is on operating expense and operating profit for Q2. Labor cost increased year over year to 146.8 billion on new hires, while it fell Q over Q due to the base effect from bonus recognition in the first quarter following record high operating profit. Platform fees and cost of revenue increased year-over-year as they are linked to directly serviced PUBG PC and console and BGMI revenue, but it fell Q-over-Q, reporting 83.9 billion won. On the back of Unreal Engine 5 upgrade in connection with PUBG 2.0 and rise in third-party development costs for mode development and hosting of multiple esporting events in Q2, commissions increased year-on-year and Q-on-Q, reporting 96.2 billion. Marketing expense reported 26.1 billion, up year-on-year and Q-on-Q on marketing activities for live servicing games and new titles. Stock-based compensation increased Q-on-Q on higher stock price, but with the change from cash-settled vested options to stock-settled option in August 24, cost recognition underwent certain adjustment, driving SBC down 20 billion won year-over-year. On the back of lower revenue and increase in cost, Q2 operating profit was down 26% year-on-year and 46% Q-on-Q to 246 billion. First half 25 operating profit was higher by 10% versus first half 24, reporting 703.3 billion won. Adjusted second quarter EBITDA accounting for SBC was down 25% year-on-year and 41% Q-on-Q to 296.3 billion, and first half adjusted EBITDA increased 4% versus 24, coming in at 801.4 billion won. For the non-operating account, there was FX-related loss due to weak dollar, leading to non-operating loss of 222.2 billion won in Q2. All in all, Q2 net profit was down both year-on-year and Q-on-Q to 15.5 billion, with the first half net profit for 2025 down 44% versus previous year to 387 billion Korean won. Next, let me brief you about the investments that were made in the first half of 25. We at KRAFTON continue to actively invest for sustainable growth. As mentioned, to secure the last Epoch IP, we will be completing the investment for 100% equity of 11th Hour Games at 132.4 billion, with closing to take place in August. We also made 5 minority equity investments, investing early into rising studios in markets like France and China, so as to gain publishing rights. Also, we're actively making investment to drive synergies with KRAFTON's business and games in the global market. We entered an agreement to acquire 39.4% stake in Neptune at 165 billion won, which is a company in the business of ad tech and games, securing a majority shareholder status. And the transaction was closed as of July 9th and will be consolidated into our accounts from the third quarter. The deal was made in consideration of the growth potential of Neptune's ad tech business and synergies with KRAFTON, and we are reviewing the feasibility of global expansion. Aside from this, we will be acquiring 100% stake in ADK Group at 710.4 billion, Japan's top 3 advertising agency and animation business. The deal is 100% cash transaction pending FDI approval. KRAFTON and ADK will strengthen collaboration to unlock synergies between game and animation. Also, by leveraging ADK's advertisement and marketing business capabilities, both tangible and intangible, we will strengthen KRAFTON's presence in Japan and further expand partnerships with Japanese companies to the extent that was unfeasible before. This ends my presentation. Thank you.
이상으로 설명을 마치고 질의응답 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 질문이 있으신 분은 화면 하단에 있는 손들기 버튼을 눌러주시면 됩니다. Now we will begin the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen. 첫 번째 질문자는 골드만삭스의 에릭 차님입니다. We'll take the first question from Eric Cha of Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
네, 질문 기회 감사합니다. 첫 번째 질문은 아주 임박한 신규 게임이 없어서 그런지 더욱더 펍지 프랜차이즈의 하반기 모멘텀에 투자자들의 이목이 집중되는 것 같은데요. 그 각 플랫폼에서 펍지의 올해 현재까지 작년 대비해서 트래픽이 추이돼서 좀 컬러 부탁드리고 또 올해는 작년 대비 컨텐츠가 많은 걸로 설명을 해주셨는데 이게 바로 이제 원래 쉐어의 상승으로 이어질지 아니면 저희가 어느 정도 피로도도 감안을 해야 할지. 그러니까 예를 들어서 뭐 슈퍼카가 하나 이상으로 알고 있는데 유저 입장에서 두 개 다 구매할 인센티브가 있을지 아니면 선택적으로 유저가 접근할지, 즉 카니발이 있을 수 있다고 생각하시는지 회사의 그 생각이 궁금합니다. 두 번째 질문은 제가 알기로는 회사가 뭐 최소 1년에 하나의 대작 출시를 목표로 하시는 걸로 알고 있는데, 아직 유효한지 또 특히 내년에 대한 파이프라인에 대해서 설명 부탁드리고요. 그 마지막으로 그 글로벌 퍼블리싱 성공 사례로 인조이를 이제 들으셨는데 좀 더 구체적으로 어떻게 커뮤니티 기반 전략이 이번에 잘 바이럴하게 특히 작동을 하게 되었는지 설명 좀 부탁드리겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you for taking my question. My first question relates to the second half momentum for the PUBG IP franchise across different platforms. I would like to understand as to what the traffic trend looks like for PUBG in each of the platforms that you are servicing the game. And you've also mentioned during the presentation that there is more content that is upcoming compared to the previous year. And can we then expect that this will drive further increase in the wallet share? Or would there be some fatigue effect? For instance, since you've mentioned there will be two supercar collaborations, do you think that there will be ample opportunity for the players to actually purchase and engage in both of those supercar collaborations, or do you think that there may be some cannibalization? Another question is that you've previously communicated that you will be introducing at least one AAA title on an annual basis. Does that statement continue to be still valid as of today? Would like to gain some color as to what your next year pipeline would look like. And the last question is regarding Enzoy. You've mentioned that this was a successful case of you showing the new titles. Would like to know as to what was the key driver behind driving such a successful viral impact from the early access of Enzoy, especially the one that is underpinned by this community-based strategy.
그 세 가지 질문 주셨는데 첫 번째 질문은 제가 답변 드리고 두 번째, 세 번째는 저희 CGPO님께서 답변 드리면 될 것 같은데요. 먼저 이제 첫 번째는 뭐 플랫폼별로 트래픽 추이는 조금 다르긴 합니다. 근데 뭐 저희 회사를 오랫동안 이제 관심을 가지고 지켜본 분들은 아실 텐데 저희가 1분기가 상대적으로 뭐 트래픽 매출 면에서는 상당히 강하고 그러하기 때문에 이제 상대적으로는 2분기가 되면 뭐 유저들 뭐 방학도 있고 개학도 있고 하면서 트래픽이 뭐 줄어드는 거는 수년간 보여온 추세이고요. 다만 그럼에도 불구하고 저희가 이제 연초에 1분기 대비는 뭐 결과적으로는 조금 하락했지만 저희가 연초에 계획했던 사업 계획 관점에서 바라보면 건강한 트래픽을 유지하고 있어서 뭐 트래픽에 대해서는 저희가 이렇게 염려하고 있지 않다 이렇게 말씀드릴 수 있고요. 저희 이제 올해 이제 전년 대비 컨텐츠 관련해서는 제 기억이 맞다면 작년 그 2분기 실적 발표 때 제가 이제 2분기 실적 발표는 이제 6월 말까지 실적에 대해서 말씀드리는데 그때 당시 이제 작년에 진행했던 콜라보들을 바라보면서 죄송합니다. 통역을 하셔야 되죠. 네.
So you asked three questions. This is the CFO. I will respond to your first one, and I will turn it over to our CGPO for the second and the third question. Regarding the traffic for our PUBG for across different platforms, we see the trend is different depending on which platform you're talking about. But for those of you who've been following our company for quite some time and have interest in our company would know that we usually have stronger performances in terms of traffic and revenue in Q1 and relatively weaker in the second quarter. So, because there's a school season starts in the second quarter, so usually the traffic shows a downward trend as we enter into the second quarter. So compared to Q1 figure, yes, there's been a slight decline. However, compared to the business plan that we set up at the early beginning of the year, I can tell you that we are quite solid, and hence we do not have any particular concerns about the traffic trend going forward and for the quarter as well. Regarding the second question, that was on content, and which I will respond.
그래서 작년에 이제 2분기 실적 발표 드리면서 그때 이미 진행되고 있던 3분기 콜래보레이션의 결과들, 중간 결과들을 보면서 제가 이제 뭐 역대급 실적을 기대한다, 뭐 이런 코멘트를 드린 기억이 있는데요. 실제로 뭐 지금 현재 기준에서 보면 작년에 이맘때 이제 저희 뉴진스 콜래보레이션이 있었고, 그에 반해서 이제 올해는 에스파 콜래보레이션이 지금 진행 중입니다. 근데 사업 설명에서 말씀드렸던 바와 같이 뭐 단순하게 1대1로 비교할 건 아니지만 어쨌든 동일한 기간을 봤을 때 더 나은 성과를 보여주고 있기 때문에 저희 일단 기대치를 충족하고 있다고 생각하고 있고요.
Now, when we made our second quarter earnings release previous year, I remember saying something to the effect that for the third quarter collaborations, that our expectation is actually towards a record high result. I remember saying that at the time, based upon the interim data that I was able to access. As of today, if I were to make the comparison, last year we had the New Jeans collaboration, and this year the ESPA collaboration is ongoing. And although it's difficult to make just an apples to apple comparison, I can tell you that the result from the ESPA collaboration is quite impressive. So based upon the same period on an annual basis, we are seeing better results as compared to our original expectation.
그리고 그 이제 컨텐츠의 양이 많다 보니까 특히 또 이제 슈퍼카 관련돼서 좀 많다 보니까 좀 이런 것들이 카니발라이제이션 되지 않냐, 필요하지 않냐라고 질문 주셨는데 뭐 상당히 페어한 질문이라고 저희도 생각하고, 근데 이제 좀 이런 면이 있습니다. 그러니까 트래픽이 건강하면 사실 상품이 매력적이면 이제 매출 효율이 잘 나오고, 상품이 매력적이지 않으면 뭐 매출 효율이 안 나올 수밖에 없는데요. 제일 근본적인 거는 이제 트래픽이 좀 건강하게 유지되고 있느냐가 제일 중요하고, 나머지는 저희 이제 펍지 IP 프랜차이즈가 어떻게 해내느냐의 결과가 달려 있는데, 뭐 예를 좀 드리면 슈퍼카는 과거에도 있었습니다. 근데 이 슈퍼카가 개별 슈퍼카로서 유저들에게 뭐 이렇게 매력적이고 어필하는 부분도 있었지만, 또 이 저희 유저들이 상당히 펍지를 오랫동안 플레이한 유저분들이기 때문에 그들 각각이 또 게임 플레이 상에서 선호도가 다르기도 합니다. 뭐 예를 들어서 에스턴, 과거에 저희가 이제 했었던 차량 콜래보 예를 들어 보면 에스턴 마틴도 있고 뭐 맥마렌도 있고 한데, 그 중에 사실 뭐 리드샷을 덜 당하고 뭐 이런 측면들이 이제 나중에 또 통계적으로 나오면서 뭐 좀 다른 에스턴 마틴을 더 선호하는 뭐 유저들이 많기도 하고, 이런 참 차별성들이 있기 때문에 차량 스킨 수량이 많다라고 해서 그 두 개, 그러니까 그 소위 말하는 이제 중복으로 인한 카니발레이션이 클 거라고 생각하지는 않고요. 그것보다는 실제로 이제 유저들이 기존에 가지고 있는 스킨 대비해서 새로 나오는 스킨들이 얼마나 더 매력적인지 뭐 그런 부분이 중요하고, 그런 부분이 저희한테 챌린지라고 생각하기 때문에 뭐 아마 진행되는 상황을 봤을 때는 기대해 주셔도 좋을 거라고 저는 생각하고 있습니다.
Now, you also asked a question about the fact that since we're providing a lot of content, would that not create some cannibalization? And you cited the supercar collaboration, which I think is a fair question to ask. But what's quite important is having the traffic which is very healthy. That really lays the foundation. And on top of that comes the attractiveness and the appeal of the product that we are offering, which can drive revenue efficiency. So basically, upon a very healthy base of traffic, it really boils down to what and how the PUBG IP franchise actually, tackles this element. So if you look back at our past supercar collaborations, you can understand what it is that I'm trying to say. Basically, individual collaboration skins, of course, they were quite attractive and appealing, but depending on what the preference of the players are, because these players have been playing our game over a longer period of time, so they show different level of preferences. In the past, we had collaborations with Aston Martin and McLaren, and depending on different characteristics, basically there are people who would prefer Aston Martin versus other supercar collaborations. So it doesn't necessarily mean that just because we're providing a lot of collaborative content that's going to trigger cannibalization. It is rather how appealing the new skin is versus the existing skin the players are currently using. That's what's the key, and that's the challenging aspect. So based upon what we are seeing right now, I can assure you that you can have healthy and good expectations for this going forward as well.
두 번째 질문에 대해서 답변을 드리겠습니다. 저희 크래프톤이 지향하는 것은 매년 여러 개의 대작들을 출시하는 것입니다. 아시다시피 게임 산업은 흥행 사업이라서 어떤 게임이 대작이 될지는 사실 모릅니다. 출시 이후에 알 수 있는 경우가 굉장히 많습니다. 그렇기 때문에 프랜차이즈 IP가 가능한 게임을 저희는 여러 개 타석이 많이 쓰는 것을 지향하고 있습니다.
Responding to your second question, what we seek for within KRAFTON is to release and introduce multiple number of AAA titles on an yearly basis. Because gaming is a commercial success-based industry, you never know which game title is going to become a blockbuster AAA game title. You would only know post-launch. Hence, we are going to make sure that we can really identify and find a game title that can become into a franchise IP. Hence, we're going to, have multiple game titles on the batting base.
내년에 관련돼서 말씀을 드리자면은 아시다시피 섭노티카 2를 내년으로 미루기는 했습니다. 하지만 저희는 더 많은 기대를 하는 이유가 플레이어들 입장에서 눈높이에 맞추는 더 풍부한 콘텐츠가 있을 거라고 기대를 하고 있습니다. 또 두 번째 기대작은 파일월드 모바일입니다. 아시다시피 파일월드는 매우 인기 있는 IP를 가지고 있고 매우 사랑받는 IP이기도 합니다. 저희가 모바일 버전을 지금 개발 중이고 지금은 내용에 대해서는 말씀드리기는 좀 이르지만은 향후에 더 구체적인 말씀을 드리기도 하겠습니다. 그 외에도 오늘은 공개할 수 없지만은 기대작들이 몇 개 준비되고 있고 향후에 이것도 천천히 말씀을 드리겠습니다.
And regarding some of the upcoming titles for Subnautica 2, yes, it's pushed back to next year, but we believe that we will be able to meet greater level of expectation of the player base. I say that because we will be able to offer a ample amount of content that really meets the expectation and standards of the players. Another title is Power World. Power World, basically, this is a very popular IP and beloved IP, and we're right now under development for a mobile version of Power World Mobile. So that is also upcoming as well. Although I cannot disclose specific information at this point, we will be able to share with you some more information about other titles as well. There's more highly anticipated game titles that are currently under development.
세 번째 질문에 대해서 답변을 드리겠습니다. 크래프톤에서 지향하는 것은 커뮤니티와 같이 만들어 나가는 바이럴한 퍼블리싱입니다. 그 반대에 있는 것은 전형적인 마케팅이라고 생각을 합니다. 전형적인 마케팅은 그 일방적으로 게임 회사가 플레이어들한테 알려주는 것이고 커뮤니티 스노우볼링은 같이 만들어 나가면서 애드보켓을 확보하면서 그 확보한 애드보켓이 긍정적인 바이럴을 일으켜서 다른 애드보켓을 확보하는 것입니다. 저희는 그 전략을 선호하고 있고요. 인조회가 좋은 사례라고 생각을 합니다. 먼저 사례에 대해서 말씀을 드리자면은 플레이 테스트를 지속적으로 하고 있고 플레이어들과 활발하게 커뮤니티에서 활동을 하고 있습니다. 그래서 많이 들었던 얘기 중에 하나가 기존의 라이프 시뮬레이션 장르 게임을 했던 분들은 인조이를 하면서 너무 재미있게 했지만 라이프 시뮬레이션에 익숙하지 않은 사람들은 오히려 더 어떻게 게임을 플레이할지 모르겠다라는 피드백을 받은 적이 있습니다. 저희가 퍼블리싱 차원에서 한 것은 먼저 출시 전에 간담회를 했습니다. 크리에이터 대상으로 또는 게임을 처음으로 시뮬레이션 정도를 안 해본 분들 대상으로 게임에 대해서 설명을 했고 이게 어떻게 플레이하는지 왜 재밌는지에 대해서 자세히 설명한 적이 있습니다. 그리고 나서 이분들이 저희의 애드보켓이 됐었고 그래서 이분들을 통해서 바이럴이 될 수 있던 계기가 됐던 것 같습니다.
Responding to your third question, we've taken the approach of creating a viral together with the community of creators, rather than resorting to just a very traditional method of marketing. So not just a one-way communication to the players, but we focused on the community snowballing effect, creating advocates, and then triggering the viral, which will in turn additionally attract and create additional advocates. So that was the approach that we took. Inzoi is actually a good example. We've been continuing, we've been taking a play test, and in so doing, we've really activated the community. And for people, and based upon the feedback that for people who are used to playing live simulation games, they really loved playing Inzoi. However, there were also other groups of people who were not very familiar with playing such live simulation games. So they did not know as to how to play the game. So upon that feedback, from the publishing perspective, what we did was pre-launch, we gathered a community of creators and we had them together. We explained to them, how to play simulation games and why it's fun to play such game. And by doing that, we converted them into our advocates, which in turn also triggered viral effect.
또 그것만이 아니라 저희가 출시 바로 전에 애드보켓을 확보한 크리에이터들을 통해서 또 많은 미션들을 드렸습니다. 미션들을 드림으로써 게임 내에서 무엇을 할 수 있는지 알게 됐었고 그거를 통해서 같이 보신 플레이어들도 즐겁게 게임을 할 수 있고 게임에 대한 이해도를 높인 적도 있습니다.
And not just that, before the release of the game, we've given a lot of different mission to these advocates. And so they were able to learn what can be done in game. And the players, by watching that, also were able to enhance their understanding of how to play the game.
마지막으로 한 가지 사례를 드리면 저 앞서서 말씀드린 것은 저희가 플레이어들을 통해서 리스닝을 해서 무엇을 했는지에 대해서 말씀드렸다면은 무엇을 안 하는지도 되게 중요하다고 생각을 합니다. 그 사례를 하나 말씀드리겠습니다. 저희가 지속적으로 커뮤니티하고 소통을 하고 있고 그분들이 저희의 솔직한 실시간 소통에 대해서 많은 칭찬하고 있었습니다. 그 출시 바로 전에 기억하시겠지만은 데누보 사건이 있었습니다. 플레이어들이 이거를 발견하고 매우 부정적인 피드백을 주셨습니다. 저희는 사업적인 면에서도 검토해보고 브랜드적인 면 그리고 또 커뮤니티적인 면에서 검토해보고 데누보를 다운시키기로 피비팅을 했습니다. 근데 저희는 좋은 선택을 했다고 생각하는 게 이거를 통해서 플레이어들이 매우 긍정적인 피드백을 주셨고 더 많은 칭찬을 해주셨고 더 바이럴이 됐었고 그걸 통해서 사업적으로도 큰 성과가 있다라고 믿고 있습니다.
Another example that I can share with you is that we've listened to the feedback of the users and listened to what it is that they need to do and also what it is that should not be done. Basically, we've been continuously in real-time communication with the community, and the communities have really liked that sort of an engagement that we've been engaging in. And one of the good case in point is the de novo issue that emerged. And the players have given us a quite negative feedback. So we've made assessments in terms of the business, the brand, as well as from the community perspective, and we've decided to deactivate the de novo aspect, which really created a good viral and had really satisfied the player base.
다음 질문은 CLSA의 크리스토퍼 킴입니다. Next question will be from Christopher Kim of CLSA. Please go ahead.
네, 질문 기회 주셔서 감사합니다. 저도 질문 3개 드리고 싶은데 앞서 질문 주신 차민우 위원님 질문에 조금 이어서 질문 드리고 싶은 부분이 이제 펍지의 어떤 중장기 성장 전략에 대해서 조금 부연 설명을 주시면 좋을 것 같아요. 지금 트래픽 견조하다고 하셨고 어느 정도 맞는 말씀인 것 같기는 한데 이제 YOY로 봤을 때 사실 거의 유사한 수준에서 크게 이제 증가세에 나오지는 않는 상황에서 더 많은 이런 IP 콜라보, 즉 이제 조금 더 과금의 어떤 정도를 좀 높여가고 이제 프리퀀시를 좀 올려가는 전략으로 저희가 좀 봐야 되는지 아니면 뭐 UGC라든지 뭐 Unreal 5를 통해서 작년과 좀 유사한 어떤 가파른 이제 트래픽 상승을 저희가 좀 기대해 볼 수 있는지 내부적으로 PUBG 이제 중장기 성장 전략에 대해서 좀 어떻게 바라보고 계신지가 좀 궁금하고요. 두 번째가 이제 아까 서브노티카 2 마일스톤에 대해서 말씀하셨는데 이게 사실 저는 제가 내부적으로는 어떻게 평가할지 모르겠지만 제가 봤을 때 인조이도 이게 정말 내부 스탠다드가 좀 적정한 선에서 지금 뭔가 평가되고 있는지가 좀 궁금하거든요. 그리고 많은 이제 자체 제작과 이제 세컨 파티 스튜디오에도 지금 굉장히 투자를 많이 하셨는데 이게 너무 많은 프로젝트가 돌아가다 보니까 이렇게 서브노티카처럼 뭔가 관리가 좀 안 된다든지 지금 뭐 퍼블리싱 조직이 겪고 있는 그런 좀 허들이라든지 어려움이 있으시면은 좀 말씀 주시면 감사드리겠고요. 이게 저희가 워낙 파이프라인에 대한 비지빌리티가 이제 투자자들 입장에서는 좀 떨어지다 보니까 좀 뭐 당연히 이제 그런 내부 이슈가 있으시겠지만 조금 더 그런 파이프라인에 대한 좀 부연 설명 주실 수 있으면 좋겠습니다. 그리고 지금 이렇게 투자를 많이 하시고 계신데 사실 여전히 가시성이나 이제 불확실성이 존재하는 상황에서 주주들 입장에서는 좀 균형 있는 이제 주주 환원에 대한 기대감이 좀 있으실 것 같아요. 그래서 작년 3개년 이제 주주 환원 정책 이제 만기가 되셨는데 앞으로의 좀 계획은 어떻게 되시는지 설명 주시면 감사드리겠습니다.
I would also like to pose three questions. I first would like to get some color as to what the growth strategy is for your PUBG franchise. You mentioned that the traffic is sound, but on a year-over-year basis, that uptrend is very moderate, not very steep. So is your strategy to really focus on, for instance, like IP collaboration to further drive monetization and enhance frequency, or do you expect a more steeper traffic growth, for instance, through the UGCs as well as Unreal Engine 5 update? Would like to gain some color there. And regarding the second question, it has to do with your publishing organization's capability to actually manage all of these many different investment that the company is now in. I question whether your internal standard is appropriate for different games and different initiatives, Subnautica 2 milestone included, because you've made quite extensive investment, both in-house and 2PP investment as well. So I question, and I would like to know as to whether for instance, like the Subnautica 2 milestone, whether things are being well managed or well controlled, or is it too burdensome for the publishing organization to really look after all of these different myriad of investments that you have started? Since we, the market, don't have very clear visibility into your product pipeline going forward, your explanation will be appreciated. And another question related to that is that, since you've made quite a bit of investment, I think there's high level of uncertainties, especially for the shareholders' perspective, whether we could expect a balanced shareholder return going forward. Since your 3-year dividend plan has now expired, would like to get some color as to what your future shareholder plan program would look like.
세 가지 질문 주셨는데 제가 먼저 이 세 가지에 대한 답변을 드리고 저희 이제 CGP님이 혹시 이제 첨언하실 게 있으면 하는 식으로 답변 드리겠습니다. 일단 이제 첫 번째 질문은 PUBG 중장기 성장 전략에 대해서 좀 부연 설명을 요청하셨는데 질문 주시면서 말씀 주신 거는 사실 단기 전략 가까운 부분들이 많아서 제가 좀 답변을 나눠서 설명드릴게요. 일단 단기 전략, 그럼 뭐 올해가 어떠냐라는 측면인데 말씀드렸지만 사실 이제 PUBG IP 프랜차이즈는 지금 이제 1분기, 2분기만 해도 작년 대비 더블 디짓으로 성장을 했거든요. 근데 왜 이제 작년과 비슷하다라고 보시는지는 제가 잘 조금 이해는 안 되는데 어쨌든 상반기 기준으로도 작년 대비 더블 디짓 성장을 했다라는 말씀 드리고, 그리고 모바일 측면도 보면 작년에 뭐 이제 그 일정 주기별로 받는 그 금액을 제외하고 보면 사실은 더 큰 성장을 한 거일 수 있는데 뭐 그런 면에서는 일단은 올해 상반기도 견조하게 성장했다. 근데 아까도 이제 이전 질문에서 말씀드렸다시피 하반기에는 이제 작년 대비해서 더 많은 콜라보, 더 경쟁력 있는 콜라보를 저희는 준비하고 있기 때문에 뭐 기대를 가지고 있다. 그런 측면에서 좀 단기 전략에 대해서 답변 드리고요.
So the CFO, will be responding to your three questions first. First one, your question related to our mid to longer term growth strategy for PUBG, and the drivers that you mentioned within your question, they're more towards the short-term strategy. So allow me to first talk about the short-term strategical approach first. Now, if you look at this year, the PUBG IP franchise, both for Q1 and Q2, posted a double-digit year-over-year growth. So I don't quite understand as to where you're coming from when you say that the trend is quite flat, because we've already, on a first-half basis, achieved a double-digit growth. On the mobile side, excluding what we, on a regular basis, receive from our external partner, you can see that the growth for the mobile revenue is quite significant as well. So in first half, we saw also a very solid growth on the mobile side. In the second half of the year, as we are preparing for more competitive collaborations, which are upcoming, I can tell you that from a shorter term perspective, you could have higher expectations.
그리고 중장기 성장 전략 관련해서는 이제 뭐 연초에 말씀드렸던 내용들을 지금 이제 충실히 실행 중에 있습니다. 뭐 몇 가지 뭐 리마인드 드리고 그리고 실제 하고 있는 상황에 대해서 좀 요약 드리면, 일단 이제 언리얼 5로 전환하는 부분에 있어서는 지금 뭐 개발을 과속화해서 진행 중에 있고요. 그리고 저희가 이제 PUBG가 PUBG 2.0 시대에서는 배틀로얄을 즐기는 게임에 그치는 게 아니라 그 이상을 하겠다. 그래서 게임 플레이 플랫폼스러운 역할을 하겠다라고 했고, 그러기 위해서 다양한 모드도 지금 현재 개발 중에 있습니다. 그리고 관련해서 UGC 같은 경우도 뭐 UGC가 대세니까 유저들한테 이제 크리에이션 할 수 있는 뭐 창구를 열어드린다라는 차원에 그치는 건 아니고요. 실제로 UGC를 지금은 이제 크리에이터 분들한테만 열려 있는데 여러 가지 이제 피드백을 수치해서 저희가 이제 고민해야 될 것은, 그러면 이걸 이제 유저분들한테 만약에 열게 되었을 때 다양한 분들이 또 UGC를 갖고 PUBG의 건플레이나 PUBG의 게임 플레이를 활용해서 다양한 게임 모드에 가까운 것들을 창작할 수 있다라고 생각하거든요. 그래서 말씀드리고 싶었던 부분은 중장기 성장 전략 관련해서 뭐 언리얼 5 가는 부분, 모드 다양화해서 플랫폼 가는 부분, 그리고 지금 현재도 연관이 있지만 그거의 일환으로 뭐 UGC를 통해서 여러 가지 이제 테스트 피드백을 하는 부분 등이 있고, 그리고 그 외에 아까 이제 모두의 사업 설명 드리면서 말씀드렸던 PUBG IP 외에도 블라인드 스팟 이런 부분들을 계속 이제 개발을 하고 또 일정 부분 되는 대로 외부에 소개하는 것도 하겠다라는 말씀 드립니다.
In terms of the mid to longer term strategy, based upon what we previously shared at the beginning of the year in terms of our strategic direction, we are faithfully executing on those plans. Just to remind you, there are, yes, updates that are being made to Unreal Engine 5 basis, and we are speeding up the development process to achieve that. And in the age of PUBG 2.0, it will not just simply be a battle royale game per se. It will play as a role as a gameplay platform. And so under that goal, we are developing wide-ranging and modes under that objective. And for the UGCs, we're not just doing it because it's currently the mainstream. at this point, it is just open to the creator base. But based upon the feedback, if we open it up to the player base, that would mean that the players would be able to use PUBG's gunplay and gameplay to create something, create many different things that would be made possible. So from a mid to longer term perspective, as I mentioned, Unreal Engine 5 update and diversifying the mode and developing into more of a gameplay and gaming platform and conducting the UGC tests and really building on the feedback and not just the PUBG IP, but also developing the blind spot, as I mentioned during my opening presentation, will form part of that mid to longer term strategy.
그리고 두 번째 질문 주신 부분 관련해서는 사실 이제 외부에서 보시기에는 위원님처럼 생각하실 수 있다고 생각합니다. 그러니까 서브노티카 2 관련해서 뭐 소송 얘기도 나오고 내년으로 미뤄지고 하니 크래프톤의 마일스톤 프로세스가 뭐 관리가 잘 안 되는 거 아니냐, 충분히 그렇게 생각할 수는 있고요.
Responding to your second question, I do fully understand that from the outside, you may think that because there's talk of legal proceedings of Subnautica 2 and it being delayed, that could make you think that maybe within KRAFTON, our milestone process is being mismanaged.
그런데 뭐 서브노티카의 현재 상황을 가지고 크래프톤의 마일스톤 뭐 게임 개발 관련 관리가 안 되고 있는 거 아니냐라는 거는 약간 좀 큰 비약이 있다고 생각합니다. 왜냐하면 사실은 어떤 의미에서는 관리되기 때문에 그런 결정을 할 수 있는 거거든요. 저희가 생각하기에 아까 이제 사업 설명 모두에 말씀드릴 때 설명드렸다시피 뭐 여태까지 만들었고 그 다음에 서브노티카 IP라는 게 이제 전작의 팬덤들이 있기 때문에 사실 시장에 뭐 내놓으면 어느 정도의 판매량은 어치브 할 수 있다라고 생각하기가 쉽긴 합니다. 근데 저희가 원하는 거는 저희가 이제 추구하고자 하는 거는 정말로 이 게이머들의 로망을 실현하는 게임을 플레이했을 때 만족도가 높은 상태의 게임을 최선을 다해서 내고자 하기 때문에 마일스톤 관리 과정에서 그런 측면에서 지금의 게임의 현재 상태가 충분한가, 그렇지 않다라고 판단했기 때문에 그런 결정을 내린 것이니까요. 그걸로 인해서 이제 마일스톤 관리가 안 되냐는 조금 다른 얘기인 것 같고요.
For you to think that regarding Subnautica 2 and looking at that case and thinking that within KRAFTON, our milestone, the development pipeline is not being well managed. Now, that there's a bit of, I believe, a reasoning leap or reasoning gap between those 2 points. I say that because the actions that we've taken on Subnautica 2 actually represent that things are effectively being managed inside KRAFTON when it comes to the milestone management. I say that because at the opening, I mentioned this as well, but Subnautica IP basically has this big follower base, the fandom base. So as long as we market it and we release it into the market, people would say that there's a certain level of sales from this title will be guaranteed. But what we are seeking to do is we want to make sure that we satisfy the highest level of satisfaction that the gamers have, their aspiration. And so because we've managed the whole milestone process very rigorously within the company, we were able to make the decision that we made regarding Subnautica 2. And because we felt that the game was not up to par, not up to the level that we had wished it to be. And so so I think that really that case really goes to show that our milestone process is being rigorously managed.
그리고 이제 인조이와 약간 견주어서 말씀 주셨는데 제가 이제 위원님 질문을 잘 이해했다면 인조이도 얼리 액세스고 뭐 서브노티카 2도 얼리 액세스인데 왜 그럴까 의아해하실 수는 있는데요. 생각해 보시면 인조이는 이게 이제 라이프 시뮬레이션 장르인데 뭐 기존에 이제 뭐 이 장르를 제패했던 작품과 비교해서도 엄청나게 높은 자유도를 갖고 있는 게임입니다. 그래서 아까 CGPO님이 이제 인조이 관련해서 스노우볼링 전략 설명하실 때 이 게임에 딱 로그인해서 사실 이제 커스터마이제이션 한 다음에 뭘 해야 될지 모를 수 있을 정도로 자유도가 엄청 높습니다. 그리고 신작이고요. 그래서 이런 작품의 경우에는 저희가 많은 고민을 해서 얼리 액세스를 통해서 유저 피드백을 상대적으로 좀 더 적극적으로 받아서 더 게임을 만들어 나가는 게 좋겠다는 판단을 한 거고요. 반면에 서브노티카는 뭐 얼리 액세스라는 채널이 있긴 하나 서브노티카 1이라는 작품이 이미 세상에 나와서 사랑을 많이 받았고 이 게임이 어떤 건 줄 알고 유저분들이 갖고 있는 익스펙테이션도 아예 신작 대비해서는 더 높을 것이기 때문에 저희가 이 부분도 내부적으로 치열하게 고민해서 단순하게 얼리 액세스로 뭐 팬들과 같이 만들면 된다라는 접근이 아니라 실제로 아까 말씀드린 대로 뭐 게이머 분들이 생각하는 거 이상의 차별점, 재미 이런 부분들을 만들어서 만족시키기 위해서 그런 판단을 내린 것으로 이해해 주시면 좋겠습니다.
And if I understood your question correctly regarding Inzoi, because you did mention Inzoi early access as well, both Subnautica 2 and Inzoi are both early access, but they are different, and there is a reason why we made the decision quite differently for these different game titles. Because for Inzoi, there's already a dominant life simulation title that pre-existed Inzoi, and Inzoi, compared to that title, really gives high level of freedom to the players. So as the CGPO briefly mentioned about the snowballing strategy, when the player logs in and then he or she customizes it, then because there's such a great level of freedom, they may be at a loss as to what it is that they need to do. And because this is a completely new game title, they might not know what to do. And that is because of that, we've decided intentionally that through the early access phase, we will very actively, collect and build on the user feedback. Conversely, if you look at Subnautica 2, although there is an early access channel that is opened, because Subnautica 1 is already a game that had been marketed, it already has a fandom that really loves the game. We believe that the user expectations is much higher for that. So although they are under the early access phase, it's not the same approach that we are taking, because we felt that there would be greater level of distinctive and differentiating fun factor that would be required for Subnautica 2.
자, 인조에 대해서 아마도 이제 적정한 선에서 평가되고 있는지에 대해서 세 가지를 좀 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 부연 설명이 필요할 것 같아서요. 첫 번째로는 이 게임마다 평가하는 잣대가 좀 달라야 된다라고 생각을 합니다. 같은 게임이 아니기 때문에 애플 대 애플이 비교해야 된다는 생각을 합니다. 인조이는 아시다시피 싱글 플레이어 패키지 게임이고요. 많은 분들이 펍지 같은 게임하고 비교를 합니다. 펍지는 아시다시피 라이브 멀티플레이어 이 PVP 게임입니다. 이거는 마치 제가 비유를 하자면은 농구와 파워리프팅을 비교하는 거거든요. 왜냐면 둘 다 스포츠니까. 근데 비교하는 잣대가 매우 다릅니다. 그렇기 때문에 다르게 평가해야 된다. 두 번째로 말씀드리고 싶은 것은 그 인조이는 장기적인 관점에서 바라봐야 된다고 생각을 합니다. 앞서 CFO님께서 말씀하셨지만은 지금 이 라이프 시뮬레이션 장르에서 잘하고 있는 게임이 지금 한 오래된 게임이거든요. 지금 25년 된 IP이기도 합니다. 어떤 게임들은 단기적으로 반짝하고 없어지는 게임이 있다라면은 인조이 같은 게임은 25년, 30년 갈 수 있는 게임이기 때문에 앞서서 말씀드린 것 비슷하게 다르게 봐야 된다고 생각을 하고요. 마지막으로는 이렇게 생각을 합니다. 저희가 게임을 평가할 때 포괄적으로 더 퍼스펙티브 있게 평가해야 된다고 생각을 합니다. 한 가지 제가 통계적으로 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 올해 25년도에 스팀에서 100만 장 이상 팔린 게임이 1% 미만입니다. 0.2% 미만이라고 나오는 통계도 있습니다. 대부분의 게임들이 망한다는 얘기입니다. 성공을 못한다는 얘기인데 인조이는 매우 니치한 장르에도 불구하고 100만 장이 팔렸다는 것이고요. 이 장기적인 관점에서 봤을 때는 지금 당장은 스몰 윈이지만은 스몰 윈도 윈입니다. 그리고 장기적인 관점에서는 빅 윈이 될 수 있다라고 저희는 생각하고 있습니다.
This is CGP. I would like to just add 3 more points to Enjoy. I believe that different games would need to be evaluated and assessed based upon different standards and different yardstick. I say that because Enjoy is a single player package game, whereas for PUBG, it's a live multiple player PvP game. So it's like comparing a basketball with a powerlifting game. Although they are same sports, basically the evaluation and assessment of the player's skills should be different depending on the characteristics that the game entails. And secondly, we have to view Enjoy from a longer term perspective. It is in the genre of life simulation, and there is a incumbent dominant IP which have been in the industry for 25 years. Some games become popular overnight and they disappear. But games like Enjoy, they can last for 25 years and 30 years to come. And so third point is when evaluating these games, we have to be very comprehensive with a specific perspective. If you look at some of the statistics on the Steam platform in year 2025, game copies that sold more than 1 million are less than 1%. And according to some sources, the percentage is even lower at 0.2%, which means most of the game titles that come out on the platform fails. And considering that Enjoy sold more than 1 million copies, even in such a niche segment of the game market. So for the time being, yes, it is a small win, but small win is still a win. And in the longer term, I believe that it could be a big win.
그리고 마지막 질문은 이제 주주환원 관련해서 이제 질문 주셨는데요. 당연히 이제 저희가 3년 전에 발표했고 발표한 대로 실행했던 계획이 이제 올해로서 완료됐으니까 내년 초에 새롭게 제시드리고 실행할 주주환원 정책 관련해서는 지금 검토를 계속 열심히 하고 있습니다. 그래서 생각을 정리해서 이사회와도 주기적으로 논의를 하고 있고요. 당연히 이제 내년 신년 이사회가 되면 그 시즌쯤에 이제 새로운 크래프톤의 주주환원 정책을 공개드릴 생각입니다.
Responding to your last question on our shareholder return program, yes, 3 years ago we announced our program, and it's now coming up. It's going to expire. That 3-year plan will expire this year, which means that come early next year, we will be sharing with you a new shareholder return program. And at this point in time, we are working on coming up with the program. We are talking closely to our BOD members as well. So come next year at the New Year's BOD, the deliberations will be made, and after that point in time, we will be able to unveil KRAFTON's new shareholder return plan.
그래서 뭐 구체적인 내용에 대해서는 지금 뭐 말씀드리기가 어려운데 다만 이제 뭐 기억해 보시면 3년 전에 할 때 그 주주환원 정책을 최초로 이제 말씀드리고 했을 때 사실 자기 주식 취득하고 100% 소각하는 프랙티스가 뭐 한국에서는 그렇게 흔하지는 않았었다고 생각했는데 저희는 어쨌든 주주환원에 대한 진정성 이런 부분들은 확고하게 갖고 있고요. 다만 주주환원이라는 게 결국 회사의 기업가치 성장을 통해서 주주분들을 만족시키는 부분이 저희한테 너무 중요하기 때문에 저희가 과거에 정책을 발표했었을 때 가졌던 방향성은 리스펙트하고 유지하되 또 앞으로 사업을 더 발전시켜 나가기 위해서 재원을 어떻게 쓸지 이런 부분도 고민해서 현재까지 이제 어쨌든 대한민국에 상장된 게임사 중에서는 저희가 뭐 규모나 내용 면에서는 그래도 잘 하지 않았나 뭐 이런 피드백도 외부로부터 뭐 듣고는 있는데요. 어쨌든 조금 더 뭐 노력하고 고민해서 내년 초에 말씀드릴 수 있도록 하겠습니다.
So although hence I cannot really share any specific detail at this point, if you really look back and think about where we started off 3 years back when we introduced and unveiled our shareholder return plan. At that time, the practice of buying back treasury shares and canceling 100% of that was not a very prevalent practice. But you can remember that our approach to shareholder return is very authentic and it is sincere. We believe that it's very important that shareholder return should be made in a way that really enhances the corporate value. That really is the critical point in terms of satisfying the requirements of the shareholders. So in terms of the direction, we will continue to respect the positioning that we had 3 years back. And at the same time, we will think about what the best way will be for us to make use of such resources towards the direction of further growing our business. And we've been receiving the feedback that out of the listed gaming companies in Korea, in terms of the size and the way in which we had returned back to our shareholders, were quite well received. So we will continue on with that approach.
이상으로 크래프톤의 2025년 2분기 및 상반기 실적 발표를 모두 마치겠습니다. 항상 크래프톤에 많은 관심과 응원 주시는 투자자 및 애널리스트 여러분께 진심으로 감사드립니다.
Well, with that, I would like to now close the second quarter and first half 2025 earnings release of KRAFTON. Once again, thank you very much for all your support.